Welcome back to the channel, everybody, and today it's yet another video in my 2024 NFL offseason prediction series. It's the Seattle Seahawks. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Subscriptions mean everything to me. May not seem like much as it stands right now, as of recording this video, only 500 plus subscribers, but every subscriber means everything to me. It means everything. It does. It's so great, so please continue to do that, guys. And like the videos, comment. It helps with the algorithms, pushes it out, gives me more opportunities to grow. Speaking of opportunities to grow, Seattle might be taking a step back in order to take two steps forward. They, much like the Patriots, moved on from a veteran, legendary head coach who sort of ran the whole show, that being Pete Carroll. His future involvement with the team is, I think, still up in the air. There are some rumors that he'll still be involved in some way, shape, or form. I would like for him to be involved in the draft process, personally, because he's done a great job at that, but you've moved on to a very young head coach. You've sort of gone the opposite way. You went from having the oldest coach to, I think, the youngest coach in the league, in Mike Macdonald, and you hope that he brings over that Baltimore defense that finished so well under him this past season. There are some question marks at quarterback. Geno Smith sort of had that one-year wonder thing and then regressed back to what we sort of expected from him. But you do have some very good young pieces in there. JSN, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, Charles Cross, Abraham Lucas. You got some really good pieces on that offense that you hope to develop, continue to develop. You want to work maybe a little bit on that interior offensive line, but really overall, you seem to have the pieces in place. You can move on from some veteran contracts. We talked about Tyler Lockett in previous videos. We'll get to that as well, and then you can just look to sort of add small pieces along the way. On the defensive side of the ball, Mike Macdonald's coming in. He's inheriting a lot of big contracts. I think you can make some significant moves. We'll get to the contract extensions. We'll get to restructuring some deals, and we'll get to some cuts as well from some big-time veteran contracts that were sort of swings and misses from the previous regime. It wasn't a perfect run organization from Pete Carroll. Is an organization that hasn't won significantly in 10 years. So there is that. So they hope that Mike Macdonald can sort of bring a new age to this organization that I think has been very well built and has had a pretty damn good culture. But we have to look at what Mike Macdonald is inheriting in terms of where this team sort of ranks and how he could potentially use his talents and knowledge and IQ to improve it. So the head coach is Mike Macdonald, the former defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. He made a really quick transition from the University of Michigan to the NFL, now to a head coaching role. And he's actually being put in a pretty good situation. He's coming into a team that has a pretty decent culture when it comes to hard work and discipline that was put in by Pete Carroll. And it's a roster that, frankly, has overachieved with Pete Carroll probably a little bit. I think people last year especially were expecting this team to be a bottom 5 football team. And they got a lot out of this roster that wasn't really expected. But he's inheriting an offense that did take a significant step back last year. It was a middle-of-the-pack at best offense for most of the season. So I think that projecting significant changes is fair at this point. They weren't great in the red zone. They weren't great on third down. They were good with sacks, and they were good with not turning the ball over, but they just couldn't score. And, being 17th in points, you're putting yourself in a position where that's not necessarily championship football. Can your defense make up for it? I think that's why Mike Macdonald was brought in, to sort of bring the defensive strategies, the defensive game planning sort of up to speed with the NFL. But, when you have Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, who you invested highly in 2 years in a row in the draft, both second-round picks, to be 31st in rush attempts, 28th in rush yards, that needs to get significantly better. You need to stop leaning so much, perhaps, on Geno Smith, who overachieved his first year as a starter in Seattle significantly, and then sort of regressed back to what people might have expected of him this past season. So you need to be able to run the ball. You need to set the tone early, run the ball with Walker and Charbonnet, and set your quarterback up to succeed. Is this the last year for Geno Smith as a starter? Probably. If we see someone like Michael Penix, Bo Nix, see them sort of drop in the draft, I think Seattle would be a team that would come up and get one. You saw it with Tennessee and Will Levis last year. But Mike McDonald's real specialty is on the defensive side of the ball, and this is where they're hoping to see some vast improvements. He's coming over from the Triple Crown defense of the Baltimore Ravens, which has a lot of great talent on it, but also had a lot of people overachieving, I think, in certain ways. But you got the 30th on third down, 24th in the red zone, 22nd in turnovers. That is completely unacceptable. You cannot win football games doing that. That's how you give up a lot of points, 25th in points. They didn't give up a lot of passing touchdowns, but teams were running the ball down their throat all game. And that needs to significantly change. Bobby Wagner, really the only bright spot of that rush defense. You're going to have to look to invest in changing that. Maybe get true interior gap-eating defensive linemen. Better edge setters on the outside, maybe. Something needs to be done here, and you need to be able to navigate the salary cap, and you got some big contracts that I don't know that you necessarily need, and you can probably get rid of. So I think that we're going to see maybe a lot more roster turnover in the starting 22 than you will in most teams, especially ones that weren't bottom 10. So I think them being a middle of the pack team this year and they're going to have a lot of turnover. It could be a really, really different looking roster come next season. So they are going in $5 million, just over $5 million over the salary cap. So they're going to have to make a couple of moves. They're going to have to, renegotiate some contracts, give some contract extensions. But they are in a great position with some veteran guys that they can very much move on from. That's going to free up a lot of space for them. And we'll start with some post-June 1st cuts, and that's Tyler Lockett and Jamal Adams. $17 million for Lockett, $16.5 million for Adams. Those are no-brainers. Absolute no-brainers. You gotta get rid of them. That's so much money that you're going to be freeing up. $34 million in salary cap on two guys, two veteran guys that you can very much, frankly, replace their production. And then there's Brian Monet, defensive lineman, $5.4 million. Easy sign, easy cuts. I expect them all to be done. You can restructure DK Metcalf, get $6 million in cap savings. I'm extending Quandre Diggs and Julian Love. Julian Love had a great year, and I think that makes it a lot easier to cut Jamal Adams. Give him a 3-year, $16 million, $25 million bonus with a void year. You extend him, you boost up his money. Same thing with Quandre Diggs. You give him an extension as well. And then you got a good 1-2 punch there at the safety position. And then you got some re-signings here. I'm going to re-sign Bobby Wagner, 2 years, $10 million base, $10 million bonus. He was a great linebacker this year. His age, though, is going to work against him in these negotiations. Mario Edwards had quietly a pretty good season for them as well. I'm going to give him a $6 million base, $6 million bonus with 2 void years. Spread that void year out. He's basically a null cap hit. And then Michael Jackson Sr., back-to-back years playing really good ball there on the outside. He's an RFA, so I'm going to give him a second-round tender at $4.6 million. I think that you can't give him an original round tender, and I wouldn't give him a first-round tender, but I kind of want to maybe bait a team into giving me a second-round pick for him. I think maybe you can put a team in a position where they might be willing to overpay. I think for Jackson, because he has had a great year, but I don't know that he's worth a second-round pick. But maybe you can bait a team into doing it. I think that puts you in it puts you in a win-win situation here. You either keep a guy who's played really well, or you're going to get a second-round pick for a guy who, in any other situation, you wouldn't get a second-round pick for. It's a great situation for Seattle to be in with that guy in particular. But with all that movement, I'm getting them $30.3 million to spend in free agency. And they do have needs. They do. You'll start with the quarterback position. They need to get somebody in place to eventually take over for Geno. Wide receiver, it's not a big time need. You got DK, you got JSN, but getting another wide receiver 3 in there, I think is imperative for them. The tight end position as well. You want to get a true alpha tight end in this offense. The interior offensive line, I think investing somewhere in there, they should also do. I think Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas on the outside. That's a good 1-2 punch for the future, at least for now. They can give up a lot of sacks. They do need some edge help despite their sack numbers. They got their sacks in like these large chunks throughout the year. And then I think getting a linebacker as well. Jordan Brooks didn't really perform this year. He's gone. Devin Bush they signed. Why even bother keeping him? And then so really all they got is Bobby Wagner, who I do have them keeping, but you do need other guys in there. Wagner's not going to play forever. And when does he fall off the cliff production-wise? I think is also a question you need to address early on. But Mike McDonald's defense also worked really well with Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen together. So having those two guys, having two really strong linebackers to play on the inside, to play that off-ball linebacker position, is going to be key for this McDonald defense. So we're going to run through some free agency signings here. And because they don't have a lot of money, it was tough for me to go out and get Patrick Queen, but I did go out and get Jordan Hicks. 3 years, $10 million bonus, 2 void years. You've now got a low cap hit player, but he's a guy who can do everything. He's another 3-down linebacker. So you got him and Bobby Wagner, 2 veteran guys, both 3-down backers, and it does kick the can down the road in terms of your true need at the linebacker position. And you can actually have a lot of fun with these two guys because they can both drop back into coverage. They can both play the run. Obviously, Bobby Wagner is better than Jordan Hicks. But Jordan Hicks being that second linebacker out there, I think is really advantageous. Then we're looking at Cedric Wilson. Just a lower end, but he's a true wide receiver 3. And it's not a big investment. 2 years, $4 million, $3 million bonus, 2 void years. You're basically just, it's less than, it's a $2 million cap hit for 2 years, and then you're done with them. That's a great position to be in. And then I'm looking at DJ Reader. He comes in, he's your nose tackle right away. This is your gap eater, your space eater to immediately try to help out this rush defense. 4 years, $25 million base, $20 million bonus. I forget whose contract I used for this, but it's a good deal for a nose tackle type. And if you get the production out of him that we've seen in the past, then this is a steal. And I think it's a good compliment for Draymond Jones, who you invested highly in last year. And you got some young edge guys who could also benefit from a guy who's going to be eating up 2 blocks with a lot of confidence, like DJ Reader will. If he can stay healthy, he can stay on the field. He can help immediately be a piece that turns around the rush defense in particular. So there's still $19.9 million in salary cap space, which is a good number to have in case there's somebody that you really like or you don't land somebody in the draft at a position that you feel you really need. It really keeps you wide open to do a lot of fancy things. I think that, if you're not looking at DJ Reader, if Justin Matabuke, who had a great season, had a career year with Mike McDonald as a defensive coordinator just last year, if he finds a way to hit the free agency market, maybe you bring him in. Patrick Queen could also be an option, depending on how much more of a cap hit it is. But you do have to keep yourself in a position where you are able to sign multiple players in that second, third wave of free agency after the draft to fill out your roster. And you don't want to be making all these cuts. You don't want to be doing too much restructuring either. So just, keeping things comfortable, adding little pieces here and there. Now, I'm looking at their draft strategy, and there's a lot looking at here, like Brock Bowers could significantly drop. If he gets past the Chargers at 5, it could be a steep fall for him. So I'm looking at Seattle, I think, is his floor, because if he falls there, that's an easy pickup. I do also like the idea, if Brock Bowers isn't there, for maybe Seattle trading down and then grabbing an edge rusher with some picks, with some extra draft picks. Maybe like trade down 5, 6, 7 spots, and you can get a Braylon Trice, you can get a Chris Braswell. I think that's a really good spot to be in, because you're filling out an immediate need for your team while also picking up more draft capital, because what you need to focus on also is value and depth. You don't have a second round pick because you got absolutely totally finessed by the New York Giants in the Leonard Williams trade. So you need to get valuable players at valuable positions and really fill out your depth. Now, you can make that trade down. Maybe you pick up a second round pick and then boom, you're in range to get Bo Nix, to get Michael Penix, who can be your 1 year backup and then immediately be plugged in next year when you dump Geno Smith's contract. You clear up all that cap space, and now you got a guy in place who sat in the film room for a year, who's now ready to go year 2, and you can now put more pieces around him with that extra money you now have when you let Geno Smith go. You're building for as much of the future for the long term as possible, because Mike Macdonald's not a 1 year choice head coach either. I think the rope for him is going to be, the leash for him is going to be quite long and quite loose. So you can do a lot of damage in this draft the way that they notoriously have in the past. It'll be interesting to see how much of that was Pete Carroll's ability to really pick out great college talent with professional upside in comparison to what they have now with Pete Carroll not as the head coach and not doing that anymore. So it'll be, and he is available, so maybe he does come in as sort of a consultant. I heard that being a consultant was on the table for him, so maybe he's a consultant during the draft, and he can put some of that, that sprinkle the Pete Carroll dust into that draft room and help them out in grabbing some of those blue chippers. Because Tariq Woolen, great find. He's notorious. He's sort of like Belichick when it comes to finding guys on day 3. If not a little bit better. And there it is, my Seattle Seahawks offseason prediction video for the 2024 offseason. Make sure to like and comment. Again, it helps out with the algorithm so much. And subscribe if you haven't already. It means everything to me to get your subscription. It's so great. I just love seeing some of these videos do pretty well by my standards. But maybe by the YouTube standards, you're like, oh, it's still small. It means everything to me. I love seeing it. I love seeing the emails when I get the subscriptions and the comments. It's great. It's so great, and I hope that to see you guys back again. The rest of the series is right here. Recommended videos, playlist, all that kind of stuff. So I hope you guys stick around and watch more, and I'll see you guys with the next video next time.